SEO, or search engine optimization, is one of the most powerful business marketing strategies out there, but it's also hard and expensive, and for competitive terms and keywords, it often requires a big budget and an even bigger team. So what does this mean if you're a solo entrepreneur? Should you just give up on your dreams of higher search engine rankings and more clicks, traffic, and sales for your website? Well, sadly, this is what most busy solo entrepreneurs do, and it's losing them a ton of customers, sales, and revenue. That's why in this video, I'm going to give you a much more realistic approach to SEO for busy solo entrepreneurs so you can get more organic traffic and grow your website and business. So let me show you how it's done, and it all starts with probably the least exciting but also the most important part of the entire SEO process: research. Research is important because as a solo entrepreneur, your time is limited and you've got a lot of things you need to get done. And there's nothing more frustrating than wasting your precious time and money and energy doing the completely wrong things. And in order to make smart and strategic decisions, well, it means that you need to have the right information, because the wrong information can lose you a ton of money, especially in the world of SEO. So step one is to find out exactly what keywords your target market is using and searching for. As an example, let's say that you have a business that installs lawn sprinklers, but instead of saying that you sell, install, or service lawn sprinklers, you decide to go for the slightly more upscale and swankier term of lawn irrigation systems. And I'll be honest, it does sound pretty good, but this seemingly simple decision has some pretty big time consequences. And all it takes is a quick look inside of the free-to-use Google Keyword Planner to see that there are around 320 searches a month for lawn irrigation, but a staggering 2,900 searches a month for lawn sprinkler. And this same kind of thing happens in every single business across every single industry, from service-based businesses like coaching, consulting, and professional services to product-based businesses like local retailers and online e-commerce sites. Wasted opportunities just from using the wrong keywords. Fortunately, as important as this step is, it's also really easy thanks to tools like Google's Keyword Planner, as well as one of my personal favorites, Zootrix, who was kind enough to partner up with me for this video. You see, Zootrix is a complete rank tracker suite that gives you a simple yet incredibly powerful solution to track all of your business's keywords and their positions on Google to see where you stand and what you need to work on next. As a solo entrepreneur, it not only provides real-time notifications, but also AI-powered accuracy, which saves you a ton of time and can also give you top keyword recommendations, which is incredibly helpful, plus competitor research, alerts, notifications, and reports. So make sure to check out Zootrix by clicking the link in the description below this video. Okay, so now that you know how to find the most valuable and important keywords for your business, the next step is one of the fastest and easiest ways to quickly get more traffic and rank higher without ever needing to create new content for your site, simply by optimizing the content that's already working. So for this next step, you're going to want to use another incredibly powerful tool called Google Search Console. I love this thing, not only because it works, but also because it's made by Google, and they literally tell you what's going on with your website and what you need to do to make it better. As a solo entrepreneur, this is like having a full-time team member constantly scanning, crawling, and evaluating your website, looking for ways to make it better. Oh yeah, and this team member just happens to work for Google, and you don't need to pay them anything. And they work 24 hours a day. And they don't steal your pudding from the fridge when they think you're not looking. That's right, I'm onto you, Dave. Google Search Console is going to give you a whole lot of data, like way too much stuff, so feel free to ignore like 99% of it. But there are a few things that you want to pay attention to, namely clicks, impressions, and CTR. So let me explain those now. First, you've got impressions. Now, this is just fancy marketer talk for someone seeing your stuff. So in the SEO world, this means that someone went to Google, typed in a keyword, your website appeared as one of the listings, and they may or may not have clicked on it. But simply showing up, well, that counts as an impression. Next, you got clicks. This is luckily exactly what it sounds like. Someone clicked. Yep, it's that simple. Then you have CTR, which stands for click-through rate. CTR is the number of clicks that your website or link on the search engine receives divided by the number of times that it showed up in front of someone. Basically, clicks divided by impressions equals CTR. For example, if you had 5 clicks and 100 impressions, then your CTR would be 5%. Now the key here is you want all of these to be as high as possible, which means more impressions, more clicks, and more people clicking through, which means a higher CTR. Now one of the easiest ways to quickly improve and increase all 3 of these important SEO metrics is to look for keywords that you have that are sitting there sad, lonely, and completely ignored on page 2 of Google. You see, there's something magical about page 2, because even though this is basically equivalent to the marketing wasteland and nobody ever goes there, ever. It's also one of the absolute best areas to focus on because any keywords that you have here are obviously ranking. They're just not ranking well enough to be competitive to earn one of those valuable places on page 1. So this is where you want to put your focus and start optimizing those keywords in the 4 most important places for SEO that I call the SEO square, because, 4 sides. Anyway, the 4 most important parts and the 4 sides of the SEO square are URL, titles, body, and meta description. So let me cover those now. So at this point, you now know what keywords are important and you know what pages to work on first, those sitting on page 2 or even 3 of the search engine. Now it's time to go over where to start working on these pages. And there are 4 places in particular you want to pay attention to make sure that you've got your keyword in those locations. For this example, let's say that you're selling business coaching, but feel free to swap out whatever you do with this example. So the first place to work on is the URL of your website. Now, using our business coaching example, this would mean adding the term business coaching to your website just like this, yourname.com/business-coaching. Next, you have the titles on your page. The titles are also known as the headings, and while you don't need to learn to code, you do need to understand that the main title is called an H1 for heading 1, any smaller subsegments are called H2, and then you can create even smaller sections from there if you want using H3, H4, H5, even H6 titles or headings. And these are very important places to include your keywords to make sure that the search engines know what it's all about. After that, you have your main content of your page. This is known as the body copy, and you want to make sure to not only include your keyword throughout the page, but also any synonyms or words that are associated with your main keyword. You see, the search engines are smart, and they use this fancy thing called LSI, which stands for latent semantic indexing, which basically just means that they can find the similarities between words and group them together to figure out what your page is actually about. They're very smart. Then you have the meta description. The meta description is a short paragraph that you write that tells both users and the search engines what your page is all about. Right here is a very meta example of me searching for what is a meta description, and what you're seeing below the main blue link is in fact the meta description itself. Now at this point, depending on how competitive the keywords are going after are and the market you're in happens to be, well, simply by finding and using the right keywords and then making sure that you're optimizing the right pages by putting these keywords in the right places, well, this may very well be enough to start immediately ranking higher. But if you want to take it a step further, and I'm sure you do, well, there are still a couple more things you can do that will help. The next thing you can do to really help your site rank higher in the search engines is to start creating beefier content. And by that I mean content with some substance, like some real good stuff in it. You see, while it's not the easiest approach to go out there and try to make longer and more in-depth content for your website, it is really darn effective. So if you can find a way to get more words on the page, add a video, embed some images or graphics, maybe link to a few other valuable resources, pretty much anything you can do to create a better and more in-depth viewer experience, well, it's all gonna help. Also, using a tool like Zootrix, you can find new keyword opportunities to start creating content on. After all, if people are out there right now searching for things that you can help them with, well, you want to do everything in your power to try to show up in front of them. Okay, now it's time to get technical. Because as good as all of that was, there are still a few more things you can do. So feel free to go through this next part slowly or pause as you go, because I'm going to go through a whole lot of stuff pretty quickly here. So let's dive in. First, one of the biggest mistakes I way too often see, and this is especially common on WordPress websites, but can happen on pretty much any platform, is having a button pushed on your website's dashboard that literally tells the search engine not to rank your website. It would blow your mind to know how many times I've had a client come to me because their website wouldn't rank at all. And all I had to do was go in and push this button, and almost like magic, they shot right to the first page. Mind blown. So make sure that button stays unchecked. Next, Google loves fast websites. So make sure your website loads fast, and always try to decrease your load times by keeping your file sizes small, using good hosting, and making sure not to use too many sliders or complicated elements on your page. Next, you want to use a sitemap. Now, a sitemap is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's a map of your website, and it allows Google to accurately crawl your pages and make sure that nothing gets forgotten or left out. Next is making sure that your website is mobile optimized. Now, I used to say that a website needed to be mobile friendly, which meant that it would look good on a mobile device. But now I say that a website needs to be mobile optimized, which means it looks as good or better on mobile than it does on a desktop computer or a laptop. This is because most website traffic now comes from mobile devices. And then there's Yoast. If you're using WordPress, make sure to use a free SEO plugin like Yoast SEO, which will take care of a lot of these things for you pretty much automatically. Okay, so with all that said, the next thing you're gonna wanna do is check out the video I have linked up right here on SEO for beginners, which is loaded with even more tips to help you rank higher. So make sure to check it out now, and I'll see you in the next video. Ranking a website, whether it's a new property or even an existing web property, is properly setting up and integrating Google Analytics. At its core, essentially what Google Analytics allows you to do is to track the analytics.